So a few weeks ago, I was on a German image board that shall remain nameless, and I stumbled upon a video. It was a very simple video. It was just someone who had recreated their childhood bedroom in pixel art, and then there was some light animation. You know the type. It was, however, playing the Minecraft theme song in the background. Needless to say, I cried for like 15 minutes. After I'd regained my composure, I thought to myself, what the fuck just happened? And then I cried again for not quite as long. I didn't have a very good childhood. I distinctly remember a teacher that knew me pretty well lamenting to me that I basically didn't have a childhood at all. I had to become an adult the moment that my age hit the double digits. I was the result of a one-night stand entrusted to a mother with a whole buffet of mental health issues, a sampling of which I also inherited and used as a bargaining chip. An emotional pawn, really, in the husk of what was never really a family. I grew up largely in a boys' home, surrounded by what you might call unsavory characters. Those were my friends. I was at a problem school where the situation wasn't much different, really. I didn't meet my father until I was 13. I fell in with the wrong crowd, yada yada yada, all the stuff. Very few people ever really believed in me. And I had, like, almost none of the comforts that I now, as an adult, know a child and an adolescent should have. Yet, I feel nostalgic for that sense of peace in childhood and adolescence. Why? It's not like I ever truly had, like, a peaceful feeling in my childhood, unless I go way back to me playing in the sand dunes of Mallorca. I always had worries. Granted, they're not anywhere near as monumental as the worries that I have nowadays as an adult, but they were also way bigger than any worries that a child should have to deal with, and as a child, they seemed even larger to me. You know in Harry Potter, where when you summon, like, the Patronus thing, you have to think back to your happiest memory? I really don't have one of those. I do, however, remember having happy times. And I'm not talking like moments, I'm talking extended periods of time, even as an adult, where I did have worries and I did have problems, but I was also, in a way, happy. And I think that that is what happiness really is. It's not the one magical night or the one magical weekend you spend with your friends. Those are certainly part of that kind of area, but really it's the weeks and the months where peace and excitement are perfectly balanced. People tend to believe that this simple sense of contentment and happiness is something that you can only feel as a child, but I disagree. I think that feeling that we are nostalgic for is the result of a certain set of circumstances that are just met when we are young. And I do believe that we as human beings have an inborn need to experience that feeling, because we as human beings have an inborn need to experience happiness. And let me tell you something about happiness. Happiness is not the absence of worry and problems. Happiness is something that many adults do experience, and with a big difference is that they know they are experiencing it. They know, and you know, and I knew at that time and place that I was being happy. Not always, like, objectively in the forefront of my mind, but just it was something that I knew deep inside of myself. And sometimes in, like, moments where I was truly happy, I thought to myself, yeah, this is good. So what are these factors? What are the circumstances that need to be met? So tell me if this sounds like the perfect life to you, no matter how unrealistic it is. You and literally every single person that you love and want to have around live in the same small town, or maybe the same large apartment building, or the same street. Maybe you have common spaces, maybe you work at the same place. You have the option of seeing each other every day. And you often do. You have a job that you enjoy, or you have a job that you don't hate, but which leaves more than enough space for you to pursue the hobbies that you actually do have a passion for, be they productive or, as we like to call them, wastes of time. You're not super rich, but you never have to worry about the next rent, or always buying the cheapest possible food. You can afford something nice on a fairly regular basis, and you can go out with your friends, maybe not every night, but you don't have to worry about the money when you do. There's always things to do, and you always have friends that will go out with you and do those things if you want to do them with friends. There's always a certain contingent of new experiences that will help you grow as a person. And very often, if you so choose, you will have the opportunity to open your windows, hear the crickets cricketing in the warm summer night, and play Minecraft until like 3 to 5 a.m. with your friends or alone, whatever you prefer. These are the circumstances that you had when you were young, if you had a good childhood. You see your friends every day at school, and when you don't see your friends, you have free time in which you could, in theory, see your friends. You have to rise early in the morning, very often, and school is not always fun, but it's the only problem you have in your life, really. Obviously, it's not all play all the time. It never was. There is always some amount of stress, but it can be handled quite easily. However, as you might have noticed, that's not the world we live in as adults anymore. Not only are we separated from the people we love by distance, right? We move to different cities and we move to different countries and even different continents. We're also separated from them by time. We get different jobs that work different hours on different days. We have to prioritize the little amount of free time that we have left into alone time and this hobby time and these friends time and those friends time and these new experiences time. We have to worry about rent, food, taxes, bureaucracy, getting sued by people who have nothing better to do. Every single basic component of happiness is blocked by inconvenience. Every single one of these simple things that you need to be happy requires a lot more work to achieve than it used to. But you shouldn't be required to overcome severe amounts of inconvenience just in order to have the baseline of happiness. You should have to put in work and effort for the big things, the great breakthroughs, the experiences, the travels and adventures. That is why they are the big things, but not the simple things. That is why those are the simple things. I would argue that convenience is an essential part of happiness. And I also think that if you have to experience stress to experience a modicum of happiness, that happiness will be poisoned. But, you know, it's just not how our world works. And a lot of people that you meet will try to explain to you that it's good and right that the world doesn't work that way. You need to grow up, you need to be an adult and just take all the shit that life throws at you with the stoicism of a rock and never complain. Just eat it up and power through. If you enjoy childish things, if you laugh and love and rejoice, a lot of these people will look down on you. Because you're soft, you're weak, you can't take the same levels of stress and anxiety and fear all of the time that they can. And that means they are way better adults than you are. You know what that is? That's people coping with the fact that they're unhappy. It's nothing but an emotional defense mechanism. It's a wall that they have built inside their own minds to protect themselves from the realization that they've sacrificed their happiness, or that their happiness has been taken away from them. They use cynicism to insulate themselves from the joy of childhood, and really, who can blame them? But when you think about it, there's no reason why we shouldn't be happy as adults. Many move to the suburbs to experience a shadow of what they have been told happiness is like. They will pretend to be friends with their neighbors and have barbecues with people who are just stand-ins for the friends that they truly miss. To me, that's the most childish thing of all, but I can certainly understand the impulse of wanting respite from society's self-imposed exile from the realm of happiness. I would argue that many of the things we used to do as kids, and many of the things that we wish we could have done, can be much more enjoyable to us as adults because we appreciate how valuable they are. That was certainly my experience, but only while I was happy. The loss of childhood joy is not an inherent part of growing up. It is a consequence of the society that we choose to live in, the society that we build and contribute to. It's not a society geared toward achieving happiness. It cares a lot more about GDP growth than human contentment. It cares a lot more about increasing profits than it does decreasing stress. And I'm not saying that those things are unimportant, because they're not. They are essential parts to having a functioning society. I'm just saying maybe they're not the end-all be-all. They're not the most important thing. We as a species are the architects of our society. We have engineered it to be devoid of childhood fun that we used to love. It is ironically condemned because if we actually worked towards it in a way that is effective, we wouldn't be working for the enrichment of other people in the hopes that they will at some point allow us our happiness. We sacrifice happiness for the promise of happiness, and with every little bit more we sacrifice, we crave it more, and we are willing to sacrifice even more to achieve happiness. But happiness isn't what's at the end of that road. If it was, you would at some point stop pulling the cart. And society can't have that. What you see on the horizon, the thing that was promised by the people who own you, is nothing but a mirage. The only things that you will get more of are stress, fear, anxiety, discomfort, because the hopes of escaping those feelings will be much more powerful than an actual wish to achieve happiness. And as we've already established, all of these things are where happiness goes to die. We make a lot of compromises as adults that we really shouldn't have to make. And because many of these compromises are anchored on a societal level, every individual doesn't really have the choice of not making them. But what if we didn't have to anymore? This is of course a very future-oriented channel, so I'm considering technological solutions to achieve human happiness, be they things we already know how to do, or technologies that we are developing, or maybe technologies that we should look into developing for the goal of achieving this. We shouldn't have to worry about the most basic, baseline, basal standard of living. The standard of living where you have a roof over your head and food in your stomach. Nobody should have to worry about achieving that. And we already have a solution for that particular thing. It's called UBI. Pretty much every single UBI study that has ever been done, and there's been a lot of them with a lot of different variables over a lot of many years, has found that receiving just a certain amount of money every month, no strings attached, is like a panacea for stress. Not quite a panacea, obviously, but you get my point. Even if it's not really enough to cover your standard of living, as it was done in the Finnish study, people feel so much less stressed, and none of them have the impulse to quit their jobs. Because doing something is an essential part of happiness also, and you shouldn't have to do something that you hate. Especially with the advent of robotics that we are experiencing right now, many of the most shit jobs will be reserved exclusively for the few people that do actually enjoy them. Maybe instead of gearing our entire educational system towards making people the most valuable they can be to society in a purely economic sense, we should make it so the educational system is geared toward making people into the best individuals that they can and want to be. Especially in the age of the internet, education is not simply the learning of information, and it also doesn't stop after high school or trade school or uni. Education should be a lifelong endeavor for everyone, and it should be free at the point of delivery. It should be a pretty common sight to see someone in their 40s or older just hanging out at a university in order to learn new stuff. It shouldn't be about making people into the most effective office drones. It should be about self-actualization, making people the most productive and happy individuals that they can be. And please do explain to me how it's a bad idea to have a highly educated populace with diverse skill sets and an ability to adapt to changing circumstances. I've never met a single person that didn't have something they were passionate about. And every time I ask them why they're doing something that they hate, instead of trying to do something that they love, the answer always boils down to they feel like they're not allowed to do the things that they love. And they're afraid of failing, because if they fail, maybe they won't be happy. So really they're just guaranteed sacrificing their happiness because that means that they definitely won't have it. Certainty is a powerful drug, especially when mixed with self-deception. We shouldn't live in an economy planned by the executive councils of massive corporations. We should live in an economy where every individual actor is self-determined and free. That is what healthy capitalism looks like. We've just swallowed the lies that the sociopaths have been feeding us. So go out there and realize your childhood or adulthood dreams. Also, don't let anyone tell you that if left to their own devices, people would just slack off and never do anything. This is simply not true. It's just a mantra that some people repeat because they think they're smarter than everyone else. There is no hard evidence for this whatsoever. Even the people that I've met that were slacking off all the time, they were doing that because they couldn't do the thing that they actually wanted to be productive at for some external reason. And the final factor is friends and the separation we have from them through time and space. Thanks to the internet, we live in a time where we have friends all over the world that we have never even seen. And those are actual meaningful relationships that we have with those people. Social media allows us to interact with folks all over the world. And not just like sending letters, like we can talk to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And as this technology advances, we will eventually be able to spend time with these people in the same virtual space, no matter where they are on the planet. Now, of course, this doesn't solve scheduling, and scheduling is definitely an issue. The magic of happiness isn't something that can be scheduled, it's something that just happens on its own time. But when you think about it, removing the spatial barriers also removes a lot of the time barriers. How often have you not gone to a friend's place because you didn't have the time to travel there and or back? Convenience is what this boils down to. And the more we developed faster, better, more connected, and less bureaucratically obstructed methods of public transportation, things will become even more convenient. All of this is obviously an enormously complex topic. There's almost infinite variables and consequences to consider at every single turn, and there are no simple answers to any complicated questions. There will be things that we cannot even see right now, and that we won't be able to see for a long time, that are actually very effective solutions. So here's my question to you. How could we use modern and future technology to achieve happiness? How can we transition from a bottom line focused society to a happiness focused society? How can technology secure many of the factors that the bottom line focused society does very well and bring it into the happiness focused society? Because let's be clear, this is not going to be some kind of cakewalk. This is not like a magic silver bullet that immediately deletes all of the problems we have ever had, and all of the problems that will emerge will just resolve themselves because we believe in it through the power of happiness. This is a major paradigm shift, a major change in our way of thinking and living. This will be a difficult endeavor, but ultimately a worthwhile one. Because after all, what is more worthwhile than having happiness in your life? Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar, or purchasing some of my merchandise. Maybe do all of those things, or do none of them if you don't want to. And in that spirit, consider maybe reconsidering some considerations you've considered in your life, so you can be happy instead of not being happy. And see you around, cunts.